Very good morning, all of you. Today, let us revise the kinematics part of our 11th class portion, which is very much essential for solving so many problems related to mechanics. And in today's class, let me briefly explain some of the ideas of kinematics. And we studied vectors and their operations as a part of kinematics. Let me start with vector operations, basic ideas, and later I will move on to kinematics revision. So, the topic is kinematics revision. In that especially we are going to discuss about vector operations. Vector operations. So here, what is a vector? A vector is a physical quantity. We know that physical quantity is one which is a measurable quantity. Physical quantity is one which is a measurable quantity, which is divided into three categories: scalars, vectors, and tensors. Scalars are the physical quantities having only magnitude. Only magnitude. Vectors are the physical quantities which are having both magnitude and direction. Tensors are the physical quantities which are having both magnitude as well as direction, but different magnitudes it possesses in different directions. That is the basic classification of scalars, vectors, and tensors. They are nothing but physical quantities, nothing but measurable quantities. If I am talking about vector should have both magnitude and direction. For example, if I take time or interval of time, it doesn't have any direction, only it is having magnitude, hence it is considered as scalar. If you take pressure is defined as force by area, but force acting on particular area is considered as pressure, but there is no specific direction for pressure. If we press a ball, we are applying pressure on the surface of a ball, but no specific direction you can assign for that, hence pressure is also considered as scalar quantity. But whereas vectors are having both magnitude and direction. Suppose if I want to move an object, I need to apply some force. If I want to move this object in the direction, I should apply force in the same direction. Okay, so force is having some magnitude like 2 newtons and it is assigned with certain direction, hence force is considered as a vector quantity. If we want to discuss about vectors, first of all we should understand what is position vector. What is position vector? Position vector means in 3-dimensional space, if you want to specify the position of an object, that position can be designated by coordinate bracket like this as per mathematics. But as per physics, if this is origin, if this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and if it is z-axis, the line joining the origin and the point in the space represents the position vector. The general form of position vector is r bar. That means if you want to reach this point, you should move x meters along x-axis, you should move y meters along y-axis, you should move z meters along z-axis. The direction of x-axis is specified by an unit vector I cap, the direction of y-axis is specified by j cap, direction of z-axis is specified by k cap. Therefore, I can write r bar as a combination of 3 individual vectors: x meters along x-axis, y meters along y-axis, z meters along z-axis. So, the combination of these three individual vectors gives the position vector. As I said, every vector should have some magnitude. To find the magnitude of this vector, we should take the square root of x component square, y component square and z component square. If you want to specify the magnitude of this vector, you need not to keep bar over there. So this is the way of finding magnitude. If you want to specify the direction of a vector, you should find the angle made by the vector with horizontal axis in anti-clockwise direction. In case of two-dimensional space, the position vector is represented by in 2D space or 2D plane. In two-dimensional plane, r bar equal to xi cap plus yj cap. Here mod r bar is equal to square root of x square plus y square, and the direction of this vector is represented by theta. Theta is equal to tan inverse y component by x component. We discussed these ideas in our 11th standard. Just I am going to give out the gist of the lesson. And if you come to this point in three-dimensional space, a single angle may not represent the exact direction of the vector. That's why we should consider three individual angles. Angle made by the vector with x-axis, let it be alpha. Angle made by the vector with y-axis, let it be beta. Angle made by the vector with z-axis, let it be gamma. To specify the direction of this vector, we need to represent all the three angles. Angle made by x-axis, angle made by y-axis, angle made by z-axis. Therefore, you can write what is cos alpha here. Cos alpha means adjacent side. That means here adjacent side means the projection of this vector along x-axis, that is x, or x component of the vector, rx, nothing but x only, rx by, and hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is nothing but the actual vector and its length is represented as r, nothing but magnitude of r. In this case it is x by square root of x square plus y square plus z square. Similarly, cos beta, if you want to specify, ry by r, and cos gamma is specified by rz by r. These are called directional cosines or are directional ratios essential for designating the direction of a vector in three-dimensional space. So all these ideas once again you recollect by reading your notebook or textbook what we studied in the 11th standard. And now let us move on to the addition of vectors, multiplication of vectors, what is the method of procedure to find the sum or product. If suppose, let me take two vectors, a bar is equal to ax I cap, ay j cap, az k cap, b bar is equal to bx I cap, by j cap, bz k cap. Now I need to find the sum of the two vectors. So the sum of the two vectors is nothing but a bar plus b bar. Nothing but corresponding coefficient should be added, ax plus bx I cap, ay plus by j cap, az plus bz k cap. And if you want to find the magnitude of this sum, modulus of a bar plus b bar, which is given by square root of the corresponding coefficient square. Okay. This is the general way of finding addition of vectors. If suppose this is a new vector called c bar, in order to identify the direction and magnitude of the sum of two vectors, you should take two laws into consideration. One is the triangle law. According to triangle law, if A bar is a vector like this and if B bar is somewhere here like this, what you should do is you should draw an equal vector to B bar such that they are representing two sides of a triangle in one order. Then the third side of the triangle in the reverse order represents the resultant vector of these two vectors. This law is called triangle law of vector addition. Triangle law of vector addition. Now, we need to study the magnitude as well as direction of the given vector. That's why, in order to have the direction of a vector by addition, we need to consider parallelogram law. Parallelogram law of vector addition. According to this law, if two vectors are represented as two adjacent sides of a triangle from same initial point, and if you draw equal vector to each vector, they will frame a parallelogram, and here theta is the angle between two vectors. The resultant vector is represented by the diagonal of the parallelogram, both in magnitude as well as in direction. This law is called parallelogram law. As per parallelogram law, the magnitude of the resultant vector, nothing but mod C bar, is given by modulus of A bar plus B bar, which is nothing but square root of A square plus B square plus 2AB cos theta. This is the formula we derived there. Directly you utilize the formula for finding the magnitude of the resultant vector. And the direction of the resultant vector is specified by an angle alpha. Alpha is equal to tan inverse B sin theta by A plus B cos theta. So by using these two formulae, you are able to find the magnitude as well as the direction of a vector based on parallelogram law of vector addition. Now let us move on to the subtraction of vectors. Whenever you want to subtract one vector from other vector, you can imagine that it is the sum of a vector with the negative vector of the other one. So subtraction is nothing but one kind of addition. So you need not to study a separate law for doing subtraction of two vectors. Subtraction of two vectors is nothing but addition of one vector with negative vector of the other. Okay, so based on that we are able to do addition as well as subtraction of vectors. Now let us move on to product of vectors. Now let us move on to the product of vectors. Whenever you want to multiply two vectors, the product might be a scalar, might be a vector. Based on that, we classified the product of vectors into two categories. Product of vectors. We classified the product of vectors into two categories. One is the scalar product. The other one is the vector product. This is also called cross product. This is also called dot product. Suppose A bar is a vector, B bar is another vector. If you keep dot between them, they will lead to generate the product as scalar. That means upon multiplication of two vectors, if you are getting a scalar, such a product is called scalar product. Scalar product is represented as dot product. Upon multiplication of two vectors, if you get a vector, then such product is called cross product and is represented like this. And mathematically, the scalar product A bar dot B bar is defined as mod A bar mod B bar cos of the angle between the two vectors. This is the definition of dot product. Similarly, the cross product is defined as a bar cross b bar mod a bar mod b bar sin theta n cap. N cap is nothing but unit vector. The method of finding unit vector is, suppose if you want a cap, a bar by mod a bar. That is the formula, general formula for finding unit vector in a particular direction. So here a bar cross b bar means if a bar is a vector, b bar is another vector lying in one plane making theta angle to one another. Then a bar cross b bar is another vector which is perpendicular to the plane containing a and b. So always c bar is perpendicular to the plane containing a and b, and c bar is nothing but cross product of the two vectors. The direction of c bar is given by right hand corkscrew rule or right hand thumb rule. Okay. So once again you go through the definition of dot product and cross product and how to find the dot product. It's very simple. If suppose a bar is ax I cap plus ay j cap az k cap, b bar is nothing but bx I cap by j cap and bz k cap. Their dot product is nothing but a bar dot b bar. You should write like this. While finding the dot product, you should multiply and add the corresponding coefficients ax bx. So x components are added, ay by, y components are multiplied and added, az bz. This is the dot product, a bar dot b bar. And the method of finding a bar cross b bar is nothing but determinant method. So a bar cross b bar can be identified by taking modulus of I, j, k, corresponding coefficients of a, ax, ay, az, corresponding coefficients of b, bx, by and bz. So if you expand the cross product, you will get I cap into, you should multiply these two and subtract from these two product, ay bz minus az by. Similarly, you should keep minus for the second component, and again by closing the first row and second column, you should take the similar type of cross product here, ax bz minus az bx. Similarly, if you take the third one, k cap, then ax by minus ay bx. So this is the way of finding a bar cross b bar. This is the way of finding a bar dot b bar. This dot product and cross product are having various properties like commutative property, associative property, distributive property. You just go through them. That commutative property is valid in case of dot product. Nothing but a bar dot b bar value is exactly equal to b bar dot a bar. But whereas the same commutative property is not valid in case of cross product. A bar cross b bar is not equal to b bar cross a bar. And you can write a bar cross b bar is equal to minus b bar cross a bar. The direction gets reversed. So you just go through these ideas, and we may solve some problems based on these ideas. Let us move on to the applications part. Now let us discuss the concept of relative velocity. Relative velocity. You know that observing a moving object with respect to other moving object leads to the concept of relative velocity. If you are at rest and if you are observing the motion of an object, then you can observe the real velocity of the object. But if you are moving and you are observing the motion of other object, such a motion is called relative motion. Mathematically, the relative velocity of one object with respect to other object can be defined like this. Velocity of A with respect to B is represented by a vector like this, that is nothing but VA bar minus VB bar. And similarly, velocity of B with respect to A, that means VB bar minus VA bar. Here, velocity of A with respect to B. So B is the observer, A is the object. Here, velocity of B with respect to A. So A is the observer, B is the object. Both are under motion. Then their relative velocities are defined like this. And whenever you want to find the magnitude of relative velocity, VAB bar, nothing but modulus of VA bar minus VB bar. So if you expand this, square root of VA bar, so VA square, VB square, this minus will come here, minus 2 VA, VB, cos of the angle between those two vectors. So this is the way of finding relative velocity between two vectors. Similarly, VBA bar, if you want, modulus of VBA bar is given by VB square plus VA square minus 2 VA VB cos theta. So VA bar and VA bar, they are represented by these two expressions. Especially we solved rain and umbrella problems, river boat problems. In those problems, we observed the concept of relative velocity. For example, let me explain a rain and umbrella problem here. Rain and umbrella. Problem. In rain and umbrella problem, in which direction a person should hold his umbrella to protect himself from vertically falling rain. Suppose this is the ground, a man is standing here and he is observing rain. Rain appears to fall, rain really falling in vertically downward direction. He need to hold the umbrella vertically straight to protect himself from the rain. But if the same person is moving with certain speed, in which direction he need to hold the umbrella to protect himself from the rain? Okay, so this is velocity of man, this is velocity of rain. Definitely relative velocity concept will come into play because rain is under motion, man is under motion. So velocity of rain as observed by the man is given by velocity of rain minus velocity of man. So if you want to have this direction, velocity of rain is vertically downwards. Actually velocity of man is like this, but we need a minus Vm here. Minus Vm will be like this. Now the resultant of these two is like this. This is Vr minus Vm, nothing but Vrm. So he should hold the umbrella in this way. He should hold the umbrella in this way to protect himself from the rain. So in which direction he need to hold the umbrella? The direction is, suppose theta. So here tan theta is given by opposite side by adjacent side, Vm by Vr. Theta is clockwise, hence it is negative. Anti-clockwise measurement of angle is taken as positive. Clockwise measurement of angle is taken as negative. So as you know those ideas, the velocity of rain with respect to a moving man is given by the formula Vrm bar. You can calculate Vrm by using this expression, and you can calculate the direction of the rainfall, apparent rainfall. Real rainfall is downwards, apparent rainfall is like this. Sometimes the rain may fall in a slant direction. In that case, what procedure he need to adopt? Let us see. Actually, this is the vertical, Rain is falling like this. Actual velocity of rain is like this. Actual velocity of the rain is making an angle alpha with the vertical like this. Now our man is moving like this in this direction. This is velocity of man. And in which direction he need to hold the umbrella. If this is the direction of Vm, this would be the direction of minus Vm. Just I rotated this vector through 180 degrees. Velocity of rain with respect to man means the resultant of these two. This is the velocity of rain minus velocity of man. That is Vrm bar. This is the direction of velocity of rain with respect to man. So he need to hold the umbrella in this direction. So he need to hold the umbrella at an angle theta with the vertical. I need to find this. Here velocity of rain is having two components. These are Vr cos alpha in this direction, Vr sin alpha in this direction. So Vr sin alpha is here, Vr cos alpha is here. If you want the direction of relative velocity, you should take tan theta here. Tan theta is opposite side. Opposite side means from here to here the length is Vm. Minus indicates the direction. No need to worry about it. And here from here to here it is Vr sin alpha by adjacent side Vr cos alpha. So this is the way of calculation in case of slant fall of rain. In case of vertical fall of rain, we should take this procedure into consideration. Similarly, we solved riverboat problems and other relative velocity related problems. So once you go through the entire content of that particular topic and try to solve applications. The main idea behind discussing these ideas is, once again I would like to recollect your knowledge acquired in the 11th class study. So once you go through the rain and umbrella problems, riverboat problems, relative velocity problems, so with those ideas you can solve any application. Let us move on to the basic definitions of kinematics, and later we will move on to the problems. You know that study of motion by the action of force is called mechanics. Mechanics is the branch of physics which study the motion of objects under the action of force. Mechanics is divided into three categories: statics, kinematics, and dynamics. Statics deals with bodies under equilibrium. For example, here is a particle which is acted upon by three forces to keep the particle at equilibrium. This is P bar, this is Q bar, and this is R bar. So body is said to be in the state of equilibrium when net force acting on the body is zero. When net force acting on the body is zero, in order to keep the body at equilibrium, minimum forces required is 2. Maximum forces required you can decide. Suppose three forces are keeping the particle at equilibrium, how they are related to each other. Suppose this angle is alpha, this angle is beta, and this angle is gamma. Then you can take the ratio of P by sin alpha, Q by corresponding sin beta, R by sin gamma. Their ratios are identical. This theorem is called Lami's theorem. So it is explaining the equilibrium of a particle by the action of force. Such a study is called statics. Such a study is called statics. So statics is the branch of mechanics which deals with the particle under equilibrium. Similarly, we studied about the tangent law. So the tangent law is also explaining the equilibrium of a simple pendulum bob at extreme position by the action of different forces. For example, if you take the simple pendulum to extreme position, so by applying certain force here, the tension in the string will be like this. Weight mg is in the downward direction, and actually earlier the position is here, now it move on to this new position like this. It is making an angle theta here like this. Now in order to study the equilibrium of this, we should take the consideration of two triangles. One is force triangle, another one is the length triangle. Here length of the pendulum is L, therefore this will be L sin theta and this will be L cos theta. So if you take the triangle of forces, so in this vertically downward direction weight is acting, in this horizontal direction force is acting, in this direction tension is acting, and it is making an angle theta here, and this length is L and this length is L cos theta. You take the triangle of lengths. So here it is the displacement x and it is the length, this is L cos theta. You can take the corresponding sides ratio for our convenience. So mg by L sin theta must be equal to f by x is equal to some t by L. Sometimes they may ask the tension in the string, sometimes they may ask the minimum horizontal force required to keep the particle at 30 degrees angle. So by using this statics, you can study about the particles under equilibrium. The second concept is the kinematics. So kinematics deals with study of motion of objects without considering cause of motion. Without considering cause of motion. So upon application of certain force, object will move, but it won't consider the force. It will consider the motion of object, to what height it is reached and what time it is taking to reach the ground again, and what is the initial velocity, what is the final velocity, what is the acceleration, whether the motion is uniform or non-uniform. Everything is studied under the heading of kinematics. It never deals with the cause of motion. It always deals with the study of motion. Whereas in dynamics, the third part of the mechanics, we take that cause of motion into consideration. So I hope all of you understood the basic difference between statics, kinematics and dynamics. Now let us move to the portion kinematics. In kinematics, we undergo various definitions. Let us see. The first one is the distance. The second one is displacement. The third one is velocity. Fourth one is speed. Next one is average velocity. Next one is instantaneous velocity. Next, acceleration. Uniform motion. Non-uniform motion. Next, uniformly accelerated motion. Briefly, I will explain each and every definition now once. So distance is represented with S, it's a scalar quantity. Displacement is represented with S bar, it's a vector quantity. Speed is represented with V, and velocity is represented as V bar, it is a vector, it is a scalar. Average velocity is represented as V average. You can have average speed also. And instantaneous velocity is represented as V instantaneous, and acceleration is A bar. Okay, like that we will have some symbols. Whenever you want to move from initial position to final position, you may follow some path. length of the path followed is called distance. The shortest distance between initial position and final position is called displacement. And velocity is defined as rate of displacement. Nothing but velocity is defined as distance traveled by time taken. If you take, that is called speed. Displacement by time taken, if you take, that is called velocity. This is called velocity. If you take the total displacement by total time, that is called average velocity. Total displacement by total time is called average velocity. If you take total distance by total time, total distance by total time, that is called average speed. That is called average speed. And the rate of velocity, that means change in velocity with respect to time, can be represented with acceleration. So acceleration is defined as change in velocity by change in time or time interval. So it is average acceleration, total change in velocity by total time taken. Here also average displacement means change in position by time taken. Whereas instantaneous velocity means the velocity of a particle during its course of journey at a particular instant of time is called instantaneous velocity. So instantaneous velocity is defined mathematically as the derivative of velocity with respect, derivative of position vector or displacement with respect to time. ds by dt will give, or dx by dt. Here xi if I take as displacement, dx by dt if I take as change in position by time taken will give average velocity. And instantaneous velocity is defined as the derivative of s with respect to t. Similarly, instantaneous acceleration is defined as dv by dt or dv bar by dt. dv bar by dt. So, what is uniform motion? The motion in which the velocity is fixed or constant, such a motion is called uniform motion. If v bar is constant, such a motion is called uniform motion. In uniform motion, we follow only one equation. That equation governing the uniform motion is velocity is equal to displacement by time. This is the general equation we are following to describe uniform motion. Uniform motion means the body should cover equal displacements in equal intervals of time. The body should cover equal displacements in equal intervals of time. Such a motion is called uniform motion. Non-uniform motion means if the body covers unequal displacements in equal intervals of time, such a motion is called non-uniform motion. Non-uniform motion means the body is covering unequal displacements in equal intervals of time. Such a motion is called non-uniform motion. Now, uniformly accelerated motion, the motion in which there is a uniform change in velocity with respect to time. That means delta v by delta t is constant. That means acceleration is constant. Such a motion is called uniformly accelerated motion. Uniformly accelerated motion. Uniformly accelerated motion is governed by certain equations. Let us see what are the equations governing uniform accelerated motion. Those are called equations of motion. Uniform accelerated motion is governed by uniform acceleration motion governed by equations of motion. Uniform accelerated motion means acceleration during the motion is constant. Such a motion can have certain equations, like acceleration means change in velocity by time interval. Change in velocity means final velocity minus initial velocity by final time minus initial time. Initial time is 0, then A bar t is equal to V bar minus U bar. Then V bar is equal to U bar plus A bar t. So V is equal to U plus AT is the first equation of motion. Similarly, you can prove S is equal to U bar t plus half A bar t square. Equation number 2. V bar square minus U bar square, V square minus U square is equal to 2A bar into S. V square minus U square is equal to 2AS. Similarly, distance traveled by the particle during nth second of its journey, Snth is equal to U plus A into n minus half. Likewise, we can have different equations which are representing uniform accelerated motion of a body. For example, an object is thrown vertically upwards from ground. It always moves with an acceleration with minus sign. A is equal to minus g. Such a motion is uniform accelerated motion. If the same object is falling freely, that means initial velocity is 0, but it moves down with an acceleration A is equal to plus g. Why we have to take minus here? While it is moving upwards, its velocity is gradually decreasing. When velocity is gradually decreasing with respect to time, it is having negative acceleration. Such a motion is called retarded motion or decelerated motion. Okay. So while it is coming down, its velocity is gradually increasing with respect to time. Hence it is under accelerated motion. So the motion of this object can be studied under the heading of uniform accelerated motion. If I want to apply those equations here, while the body is going up, it will move on to the position where the final velocity becomes 0. It has thrown up with initial velocity u, and acceleration should be taken as minus g. It reaches to a maximum height h maximum. So how to take those values? If you take v is equal to u plus at, in this case final velocity is becoming 0, u is u only, a is minus g only. The time taken by the body to reach the maximum height is called time of ascent. Ta I am writing. Then time of ascent is u by g. Similarly, while the body is coming down, the final velocity, it is getting some v before reaching ground. Initial velocity is 0. Then if you apply second equation of motion here, you will get maximum height is equal to, I am not going to derive all those, u square by 2g, and the time of descent you can calculate as root 2 h by g. H is the height through which it is falling. Time of flight is nothing but time of ascent plus time of descent, that is 2u by g. Likewise, we can derive various formulae based on the equations of motion. Now let us move on to the applications part. A simple application, let me discuss. An object want to move from position A to position B, and it is moving in such a way that half of the time it is moving with constant speed v1, and remaining half of the time of its journey it is moving with v2. I need to calculate what is the average velocity here. V average. So V average is calculated as total displacement by total time. Here in straight line motion, distance and displacement both are having same meaning. So here in the first part of the journey, the displacement is S1, not known to us, and the second part of the journey, the displacement is S2, it is also not known to us. Just let me designate them with S1 and S2. Then total displacement is S1 plus S2 by total time is T by 2 plus T by 2. If you want this displacement, you know that from here to here, the velocity is constant, that motion is uniform motion. In uniform motion, velocity is equal to displacement by time taken. So S1 can be replaced with V1 T by 2. Similarly, in the second part of the journey, the velocity V2 is given by S2 by T by 2. So displacement in the second part journey is V2 into T by 2. S1 plus S2 means V1 into T by 2 plus V2 into T by 2 by total time is T. So T by 2, if I take common, T into V1 plus V2 by 2T. Tt gets cancelled, V1 plus V2 by 2. That is the average velocity in this case. Similar case, the body want to move from A to B such that half of the distance it is moving with V1, remaining half of the distance it is moving with V2. Now I would like to find again the average velocity. As we discussed, average velocity is defined as total displacement, that is S by 2 plus S by 2 by total time. Times are not provided. So first part of the journey is taking T1 time, second part of the journey is taking T2 time. So T1 plus T2. So that is the average velocity. So total displacement is S by total time is T1 plus T2. In order to find the time, again I am considering the uniform motion concept here. From here to here, the distance is S by 2, which is covered in T1 time. So velocity V1 is given by S by 2 by T1. So this implies T1 is equal to S by 2 V1. Similarly, in the second part of the journey, velocity V2 is given by S by 2 by T2. That means T2 is equal to S by 2 V2. By substituting them here, average velocity is given by S by 2 V1, S by 2 V2. Now on simplification of this, you will get S can come common and 2 will go up, 2 by 1 by V1 plus 1 by V2. On taking LCM, 2 V1 V2 by V1 plus V2 will be the average velocity during the motion. If the same body covers half of the distance with V1 and remaining half of the distance with V2, average velocity is given by 2 V1 V2 by V1 plus V2. If it is covering half of the time with V1, remaining half of the time with V2, then average velocity is defined as V1 plus V2 by 2. So in this way, we may apply the concept of average velocity and uniform motion concept to find the required results. I hope everybody understood till this part what I discussed. Here is a question. As per the question, a car travels from a station A to B 30 kilometers during round trip to A. A car is going to travel from A to B with a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. And During the return journey, it travels half of the journey time with 30 kilometers per hour. During the return journey, if the total time of the journey is t, then half of the time, t by 2, it travels with 30 kilometers per hour, and remaining half of the time it travels with 70 kilometers per hour. Now the question is, what is its average velocity and average speed? What is its average velocity and average speed? Let me calculate. First, let me calculate average speed. We average total distance by total time. Here it is going to get returned back, hence motion cannot be considered as 100% straight line motion. So we should take the individual parts into consideration. So total distance traveled, they did not give any distance. Let me take the distance during the first part of the journey as S1, the second part of the journey as S2 from here to here, the third part of the journey, the distance is S3. Then the total distance traveled is S plus S2 or S1 plus S2 plus S3. This is the total distance traveled. And they did not give the time also. In the first part of the journey, let it take capital time t. And during return journey, the total time taken is t by 2 plus t by 2 capital T. So capital T plus, t by 2 plus t by 2 small t. This is the thing we have here. But you know that whatever distance it traveled in the first part of the journey is exactly equal to the total distance traveled in the return journey. S1 is exactly equal to the sum of S2 plus S3. So you can write average speed as S1 plus S1 by replacing S2 plus S3, t plus t. That is nothing but 2S1 by capital T plus small t. But here we introduced the new terms S1, S2, S3, capital T and small t. The terms introduced by us must be replaced by us. Okay. Now this is the velocity in the first part of the journey, let it be V1, velocity in the second part of the journey as V2, and velocity at the third part of the journey as V3. Okay. So first let me take the displacement during the first part of the journey. From here to here it is under uniform motion. So you can write velocity is equal to distance traveled by time taken. So S1 can be written as V1t. V1 is 30 t. S1 can be written as 30 t. If I come to the second part of the journey, here velocity is 30. 30 is equal to distance traveled is S2 by time taken is t by 2. That implies S2 is equal to 30 t by 2. Similarly, in the third part of the journey, the distance traveled is S3. The velocity it maintained is 70. 70 is equal to S3 by t by 2. That is S3 is equal to 70 t by 2. I successfully calculated S1, S2, S3. But we know that S1 must be equal to S2 plus S3. S1 is 30 capital T. S2 plus S3 is 30 t by 2 plus 70 t by 2, that is 100 t by 2, that is 50 t. So 30 capital T is equal to 50 small t. 0 0 gets cancelled. You can replace small t with 3 by 5 capital T. Now if you take 2 into S1 can be replaced with 30 capital T by T plus In the place of small t, I should write 3 by 5 capital T. T will come common and it will go off. So you are left with V average is equal to 60 in the numerator by 1 plus 3 by 5. That is 60 by 8 by 5. That is 60 into 5 by 8. So that is 37.5 kilometers per hour. This is the average speed. Then what is the average displacement? Average displacement is 0. Average velocity is 0. V average is equal to total displacement by total time. Total displacement means it moved from A to again A. Total displacement is 0. So total time, whatever it is. So average velocity is 0. Average speed is 37.5 kilometers per hour. I think you followed this, and it's a very, very simple solution for the given problem. One more question let us discuss. A car travels with a speed v1 in the first half of the journey. During second half of the journey distance, it travels with a speed v2. Half of the time with v3 for remaining half of the journey time. What is the average speed? So this is the question. Once again I am repeating. Body want to move from A to B. Half of the distance, the total distance is S, it travels with the speed v1. In the second part of the journey, half of the time, if the total time for the second part of the journey is t, half of the time it moves with v2, the remaining half of the time it moves with velocity v3. What is the average velocity of the particle during this journey? We need to calculate. It's very simple. Here total distance to be traveled is S. In the first part it covered S by 2. In the second part it covers again S by 2. The time taken for covering the first part, let it be capital T. That is not known to us. The second part of the journey distance is covered in two equal half intervals of time with V2 and V3 like this. Anyway, any problem is given, you should go with the general idea. What is the general idea? The general idea is average velocity is equal to total displacement by total time. Total displacement is S only. Total time is capital T plus small t. This is very simple. But the total displacement is not provided to us. Okay? But you are given that from here to here it moves with v1 for a time t through a distance s by 2. From here to here velocity is not changing. So in the first half of the journey, velocity v1 is equal to displacement s by 2 by t. In the second part of the journey, velocity v2. Okay. The displacement in the second part of the journey is not known to us. Let it be S2 and it is S3. So V2 can be written as S2 by T by 2. V3 can be written as S3 by T by 2. But you know that S2 plus S3 is equal to S by 2, capital S by 2. So from here S2 is V2 T by 2 S3 is V3t by 2. S2 plus S3 must be equal to S by 2. That should be equal to V2t by 2 plus V3t by 2. So 2 can get cancelled here. S is equal to V2 plus V3 into T. S is equal to V2 plus V3 into T. Now, capital T is given by S by 2 V1. Now, average velocity is given by capital S by small t plus capital T. So, capital S by small t can be replaced with S by V2 plus V3. Capital T can be replaced with S by 2 V1. Now average velocity you can calculate by simplifying this. V average is equal to S, you can take common. So 1 by V2 plus V3, 1 by 2 V1. If you take LCM, 2 V1 into V2 plus V3, that will come to the numerator part. 2 V1 plus V2 plus V3 will be in the denominator part. This itself is the average velocity during the journey. This is very simple solution. You just go through the basic idea of the definition and try to revise the idea while solving the problem. Thank you.